Okay.
Hello, hello, friends.
Hello.
How
Mid
are we?
sentence, mid sentence, Becky goes, "We're going," and it was like, "Ooh, okay."
Hey, it's real life. You,
I
you,
love it.
you told me to go live. We might as well
I
share with
did.
all of our friends.
I know, right? Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, YouTube. Welcome to our two Instagrams and our multiple Facebooks and Twitch and Rumble. And eventually we will get these uploaded to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. So happy Monday.
Yes. How is your Monday? It's hot here. We're supposed to get not near as hot as you, but it is hot here for Nebraska, and we're supposed to get storms tonight. So, yay, yes.
Yay. Yeah, we're already real feels triple digits now. So yeah, it's a little warm. We've had enough rain to last us like forever. Um, rained most of yesterday, and we were stuck in our travel trailer. Happy Father's Day to those that are watching belated. So we finally the rain let up, and we took off and went and got groceries and stuff. So that was my exciting day yesterday. How was your Father's Day weekend?
It was good. We really didn't do much. Few more things around the house as far as our home improvements of working on the deck and that type of thing. But had all not all the kids, three of the four kids. The My daughter was with my ex husband, her dad, for Father's Day, and we did talk to her or get a text message from her. So that was nice. But the other kids were home and we just kind of hung out and then we grilled some burgers and stuff. So yeah, it was a good day. Kind of chill, but on the other hand, we got a few things done that needed to be done yesterday. So
Yeah, yeah, that definitely sometimes summer weekends are made for getting things done, right?
yeah.
And kind of leads us into our topic tonight. So we titled tonight's episode "Better Than Yesterday: The 90-Day Summer Reset." And there's a reason because, well, I'll let you kind of start and then I'll join in. What the heck is that, Becky?
Yeah. We have the BNC community obviously, and in the community we always are doing some form of a challenge. I mean, we've done a mindfulness challenge, we've done a breathwork challenge, we've done declutter challenges. We've done all sorts of these
Mhm.
challenges, and when we really look at a challenge um that is going to kind of set people up for summer, but yet better versions of ourselves than what we were yesterday, because we're always told that in order to have a transformation, right, it comes from extremes. Maybe that's strict diet, long workouts, and a lot of times people go in with this all in mentality, like everything has to be to a T or you start back over on day one, right?
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
hear those challenges on social media all the time, quote, the hard challenges, right? 75 hard
Yes.
or blah blah blah, right? And I didn't want to create that because I think that creates a negative mindset when you start to do these all in mentalities. And so I wanted one, or we wanted one, because this was was a community and group effort. We wanted one that was based on real health. And what does that look like, right? what
Right.
what does health look like? We've asked that question on podcasts before, we've asked that in the community. What does health look like? It does it look like someone, a certain size? Does it look like a certain weight? What does health look like to you? But overall, it comes from the little things we do
Yeah.
consistently. It's Monday and I can't even talk. It's not about being perfect day in day out,
Mm-mm.
or an one size fits all, you must do it this way type mentality. It's a better than yourself yesterday, right? Making those little steps and being better than what you were. And that's kind of how the Better Than Yesterday 90-day summer challenge started. It was born because many people needed this reset, refocus, not another detox, not a cleanse, not a crash program that, was only going to end up and set them up for the short-term goals, but I wanted one that was going to look at the foundational habits that we talk about and actually setting and moving the needle. Well, and so that was prioritizing sleep, looking at nourishing real foods. Maybe that means carnivore, maybe that means paleo, maybe that means keto, maybe that just means seasonal eating, right? Circadian eating, whatever that looks like, nourishing with real food, moving your body daily, being very intentional about moving. That I did not label it, you must end up and walk 10,000 steps or you must do this.
Right.
Move daily. We have a Coach Sly loves her rebounding. We have April that has done her rebounding, and we just had her on last week. Moving somehow intentionally daily. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And then hydration, because we're moving into summer. A lot of people don't realize that you're always perspiring. You're always, whether it's talking or, just simply being, right? That it can be dehydrating. And so making sure you're getting that proper hydration, hydrating deeply, but also connecting with nature is part of it. So making sure that people are stepping outside. Many times
Right.
people are either in an office building or inside, um, they kind of hibernate and become hermits, right?
Right.
We hear a lot of excuses this time of year too of it's hot outside or, things like that. Well, get up and get out early with the sunshine or sunrise. There's times that you can end up and be out. One of the biggest things, and we've kind of talked about this in the community because we've had a couple community members that said this is the hardest part of the challenge for them, and that's
I know what you're going to say. Yes.
logging off of that electronics, an
Yeah.
hour before bed. Because a lot of times they want to end up, sitting there with their cell phone and scrolling through it. And even if
Yep.
the screen's red, right, you
Yep.
still need to end up and be off. And one of the questions that I got on social media when I first started putting things out about the challenge and tagging you coaches was, what do I do in that time? What do I do before I go to bed? And it's
Isn't
like,
that wild?
we're so connected into the digital world that we lose track. And so there is the aspect of the journaling, reconnecting with your purpose, right? I'm like,
Hmm.
journal, end up and make a list for the next day of your to do, so it takes some of that stress off. But the final piece of it was giving yourself grace. So there is a forgiveness day. Maybe, that's a day where you didn't do things, like you set out to do, and that's okay. It's not about doing everything perfectly every single day. Like I said,
Right.
started out, it's about showing up, right? Showing up better than you did the day before. And we're really looking at setting long-term goals or long-term lifestyle, and that's why we made it 90 days, because a lot of the history and the studies that have been done, it shows that it can take 60 to 66 days to create a new habit. So that's why we pushed it out to 90 instead of just doing like a 30-day challenge.
Hmm. Well, and I'm going to add to that.
Mm-hmm.
We seen too many people abandoning their goals because um, the system, social media, it's an all or nothing, right? And we felt that the little micro habits where the tiny actions, the consistency uh, that are repeated create massive shifts. Now, what we didn't want was to create shame. Um, it's this challenge is a take back without beating yourself up, right? It's the reset without the restriction. It's about grounding and not grinding. We wanted to give folks that structure that builds momentum and not the burnout. Um, because we know health isn't about what you do once in a while, it's about who you become when life is lifing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the biggest well, and we've seen other challenges out there that it's this all or nothing mentality and rigid, and if you don't do that, then you got to start over, referencing the what is it, the hard
75 hard.
70 hards. Yeah. And it's like, oh my goodness, life gets in the way. How do we do that? And I'll tell our audience, um it's been well received. And so I took it a step further. So I coach the Supercharge Your Mindset on um, at 11:30 Central Time in the morning, and I have created uh, 90 days or a weekly um, um,
Check-in.
objective. Yeah, check-in objectives. It's a mindset. It's a discussion that we have, and then some action steps. And it's been interesting to hear folks like you said, that's how we figured out that everyone's having this hard time with putting their phone down an hour before bedtime. That seems to be the biggest struggle. But yeah, you know, this this healing journey, this healing the whole body is not about perfectionism and shame at all.
Yep. Well, and that's why, if we end up when we break down every part of the challenge, there's a reason behind why we put these in there, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't just some willy-nilly throwing these out there, right? There is a reason of why it matters to our body, to our health as we end up and move and look for, health, energy, transformations. Um, all of these areas end up and matter. Now, for anyone that is listening to this, you had talked about, the meetings. Yes, we have 5 meetings a week, basically dedicated to this challenge.
Mhm.
People can check in during that meeting. It's different times of the day. Some of them are in the evening time. But the overall scope that and I'll break each of these habits down in individually, but the overall part of the challenge is free. I
Yeah.
didn't want to charge,
Nope.
$20 or $40 or 100, I didn't want to charge what I want and what you want and what Coach Sly wants and what the community wants is for people's health to get better.
Yes.
And what better way can we end up and support people than free?
Yeah.
And that's the overall basis. And I say it that way because someone said, this but everything I see the challenge is costs, the
Right.
community costs. If you want the meetings, if you want the PDF trackers, if you want all of that, sure, it's the price of the community. Join us at bncommunity.com. You can get all those meetings. You can get Coach Sherry's meeting. You can get Coach Sly's meeting on Tuesday nights. You can end up joining us for that part. But the overall basis, which is 7 to 9 hours of sleep, is the first one, right?
Mhm.
Because sleep is our body's recovery. So it helps us to regulate cortisol, it helps to regulate insulin, leptin, ghrelin, right? If we don't get that quality sleep, the brain won't end up in detox. The leptin won't dock to the hypothalamus. So we're not getting that signal of, hey, your body has energy to use, right?
Right.
Um, if you're scrolling your phone late at night and you're stimulating the body to create this second cortisol response, you're going to end up with higher blood sugars. You're going to end up with with a depleted immune system. So no sleep, no fat loss, no
Right.
mood balance, no healing. That's just the way it is. And I put 7 to 9 hours because there's so many people that are like, I sleep 4 to 5 and I feel great. Well, your body is not doing what it needs to do. Melatonin is a very powerful antioxidant as well. So if you're not getting that, you're not getting the leptin signaling, you're not getting a lot of these foundational circadian hormones. So they're required. But um we can't burn the candle at both ends and expect to get better. So that's why, like I said, sleep is very important. Uh,
Absolutely.
the second part was the no processed sugar, no processed foods. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Shouldn't really need to explain why that matters, but for many people, it does, and I do have to explain. And things like your cereal, right, that come out of a box, your shredded wheat, or your ho-hos, or your, wheat thin crackers that are labeled as heart healthy, or, anything that is basically in your interior aisles of, we'll say Walmart, sorry Walmart, but of Walmart.
Hmm.
Anything that is in those main aisles. Now, sure, there may be the occasional, one-off type products, but most of those processed foods are going to hijack your hunger cues. They're going to inflame your gut, and they're going to spike insulin. Anytime that insulin is elevated, it is the fat storage hormone. So you are going to end up and rob your body of nutrients. You're going to end up and be left with cravings. You're not going to be satiated and satisfied that you get from whole foods, especially more of like animal-based protein for lean muscle mass, your fats and your whole food carbs, because your whole food, is going to come with fiber. I'm not talking about consuming, smoothies or green juices or anything along those lines. I'm talking about eating the whole food, because what you ideally are looking at is stabilizing blood sugar and fuel your body properly. Food is a signal of safety, not stress. So many people are also under eating, right? I can't
Mm,
tell you in clinical practice how many people I've spoke to that they're like, I'm only eating, and it comes to like
yeah,
800 calories,
yeah.
900,000. It's like, that's not
Hmm.
even enough. And you wonder why your hormones are all out of whack and your body's stressed out and you're losing hair. And that's why you have to be able to feed
Yeah.
your body with what it needs, get the nutrients you need. Um, Movement matters. Like I said, we all end up and do it a little bit different, right? The 30 minutes of movement, maybe that's jumping on a trampoline. Great lymphatic flow. It helps with, increasing that lymphatic drainage. Walking outside helps with increasing oxygen flow, regulating glucose by walking after a meal. I've had several people say, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to fit 30 minutes of movement in. Break that up. If you're eating 3 times a day, walk for 10 minutes. It's usually
Well,
30 minutes.
so that's funny you say that. So I had visited my parents in Indiana for 2 weeks. I've been back just a little over a week. And I was in the mall. I called you. I went to the mall and I had to buy something. So I've lost enough weight and my body is like what do you call it?
Your body composition's changing.
Yeah, is changing. And for those gentlemen that are listening, I apologize ahead of time, but I needed to buy new bras. And so I went to the mall and I went into Lane Bryant and quickly realized that I'm not Lane Bryant's size of bras anymore. And it was a little shocking. Now, my one of my best friends, Jody, she had said, "Oh, I went to Victoria's Secret," like Becky and I jokingly call it Vicky's Secret, right? Vicky's Secret, and it was, like, right there, like, candy corner from Lane Bryant, and I thought, "There is no flipping way that I am going to." And I ended up buying 2 sports bras in there, but so, a little shocked, um and I was kinda looking around and you had to go. You had a coaching client and you said, why don't you walk the mall?" and get your intentional movement in. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me that I could go walk the mall. But that's exactly what I did is I went and walked the mall. And I got my intentional movement in. I think I had something like 12,000 steps that
Yeah.
day. Yeah, it was something real crazy like that, but that was that intentional movement, and yet I walk the mall, I'm like, "What kind of stores are here?" Just it wasn't like I was running a marathon. I intentionally got steps in.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't need a gym. I mean, sure, you can end up and be, intentional and do body weight exercise. You can,
Yeah,
there's things that you can end up and do, but simply, like you said, going to Walmart and walking, going to the mall and walking, going to the park and walking, it doesn't have to be fancy. We're just looking at how can we end up and stimulate, right, that mitochondrial energy to end up
mhm,
and help boost the mood and build more of this stress resilience and increase the blood flow, right? We get so sedentary that even just the neat movement, right? Clean your house, vacuum, go walk up and down your stairs or, walk laps around your house if you have, the access. I can't tell you how many times it's been raining and, because of what I do, I can't necessarily go downstairs and walk on my treadmill, but I've walked laps, right? From the kitchen to
mhm,
the living room to the dining room,
mhm.
and around. And that counts too. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy.
How many times have I been on the phone with you and you're like, "Okay, you're gonna go get the mail with me,"
Yep.
right? Like, and that's your intentional,
Yep.
sometimes it's windy and, but
Well, and
but
that kind of leads into the next one too, right?
right.
You can stack some of these practices too. So it's
Yes.
not, doing 30 minutes of outside and 30 minutes of movement. Maybe that's 30 minutes of outside movement, right? Just being outside too is part of that. Grounding and
Nature's
barefoot.
therapy. Yes, I
Yep.
call it nature therapy.
Yep. That natural light, it ends up anchoring your circadian rhythm. So there's different times of, light to end up and see. Like I said, sunrise, UVA, getting that UVB. Low vitamin D is one of the main health triggers for 90% of chronic health conditions.
Mhm.
It, when we end up and we don't have proper vitamin D levels. And so sunlight helps regulate the sleep and wake. A lot of people are, awake late at night because they're overstimulated by blue light. They haven't got outside and got the proper signals of the time of day. Being outdoors and, like you said, doing that nature sound bath, essentially, whether
Mhm.
bonus if you're doing it grounded, barefoot connected to the earth and gaining those electrons. And part of that also reduces the inflammation, improves heart rate variability, all of that. Nature is that free medicine essentially. And but it also lowers stress. So again, it brings that cortisol down. Your
Yeah.
cortisol's up, your glucose is up. What else comes up if the glucose is up is insulin. So when get out of the hamster wheel, quit chasing just one factor and look at it as a whole.
Mhm.
And again, take your water with you, right? We talked about mineral water and proper hydration. Take your water with you and go for a walk.
That's funny because you and I were talking. So we drink coffee, both of us. And here recently, we both realized that we like salty coffee. We are
Yeah, it
actually putting salt in our coffee.
it takes that bitter out. But for
Yeah.
anyone also that is listening, no, coffee is not going to be your hydration.
Bingo.
Coffee can
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah. I should have
be
preferenced that.
dehydrating.
Yeah.
So we're, talking about the salt. Yes, the salt in your water so that you're replenishing some of that sodium. Because plain water will, without the minerals, will just flush you out. So you can actually overconsume water and deplete a lot of this. But hydration also affects your metabolism, it affects your digestion, it affects your energy, all these areas, right? It also helps you flush things through. So as you're kind of doing a lot of these things that are better practices, you also need to make sure that you are, eliminating that from the body. So yeah, making sure you get nature's minerals for true cellular hydration. That
So
doesn't.
I'm going to ask a question to our audience. What is your best hydration hack? Let's see what kind of comments we get for that.
Yeah, chime in. And if anyone
Yeah.
has questions, I know there's several of you watching over here on YouTube. We've got people over on Twitch watching. We've got Instagrams and Facebooks. So if anyone has questions, feel free to jump in. Again, everything that I am talking about is the free part. So
Yep.
this is not, there is no fee for joining what I'm discussing. These are all free. Now, the other part that a lot of people actually end up and struggle with is getting the 30 grams of protein.
Yes.
So that can be hard for some people. And the reason why protein is so important as, the structure is it helps to build tissue. It helps to end up and create some of these neurotransmitters, the amino acids and muscle, and, provide our body with that strength as we end up when we get older. So I don't care whether you're someone that's, 30 years old, or if you're someone that is 70, 80 years old. We end up and we need these animal-based proteins. And the most complete amino acid profile that is going to support muscle, hormone, satiety, all of that is found in animal base. So that doesn't mean, consuming a bunch of protein shakes and,
Right.
everything in between, right? Yes, I end up and I like my protein bars. I have a quality protein shake, but I make sure my foundation of my meals is animal-based protein.
Yep.
So whether that's beef or chicken or tuna, I like seafood this time of year. I like chicken and
Mm.
turkey this time of year, especially on, a nice salad with some chicken on top. Um, whatever the animal is that you want to consume, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you are getting it in, because you can't rebuild your body without the foundation and without the raw materials. So it's like building a house without a wall.
Right. Right. You're losing muscle.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get adequate protein in, and it is dependent on your activity level as well, but you will lose muscle. And that should scare people right there.
Yeah.
Because if you fall, I mean, I think about things like, well, if I fall, can I get up?
Yeah.
Do I have the muscle strength, the arm strength, to be able to get up? And something as simple as making sure I get enough protein in my day.
Yeah. It, like I said, especially as we end up when we age, it's a lot of people think that they're, 10 foot tall and bulletproof when they're in their 20s, 30s, but as we end up when we age, we have to be able to hold that lean muscle mass.
Hmm.
And that's, again, the part that it takes is these basic foundational aspects. So making sure you're getting that in. It's not necessarily about eating, super large meals and having, a pound of meat at one setting, but it's about making sure that you're getting this. There's again, a lot of scientific research and studies that are talking about the animal protein at a meal. So 30 grams really isn't that much. It's about the size of your hand, or even just shy of your hand. So it's not that much protein, right? You don't have to sit down and eat this big, Texas T-bone steak or something. Do any form of, an animal-based steak challenge or something. We're just
Right.
talking about, making sure you're getting adequate protein at a meal setting. So, the other parts of that obviously are breath work, meditation, reading, journaling, because the parasympathetic side is just as important as a lot of these other sides. If you're not reflecting and supporting this mindset shift, you have to be able to work on that rewiring, that emotional process, and seeking that clarity, because it really does activate more sides of the brain. And a lot of us also have had past traumas or past, occurrences where, as we're starting to kind of work through this, as we're starting to seek transformations, those cells are holding some of those toxins, they're holding some of those emotions. So really working on the side of frequency and transformation. It's not just about physical, but it's also about the internal and the mindset. It's not like I can, just slap a band-aid on it and make it all better. We have
Right.
to be able to work on this rest, repair, parasympathetic side of the body. That's going to help you with, again, lowering that cortisol, increasing focus. Many times people are, so caught up in the monkey mind that they don't have that clarity and focus that they need. And so supporting that side of the nervous system healing, working through some of those past traumas. I've told clients
Oh,
before,
yeah.
your journal does not need to make sense. You
Right.
might talk about, sky being blue, and then your next sentence may be completely, a 180 of it. And that's okay. It does not need to make sense. Whatever thoughts are in your head need to end up and come out. That energy exchange has to come out. So that's where, that whole side of the reading, the journaling, making sure, you're off the phones before bed, because many times they'll see something and maybe it triggers them in a negative way, right? Or maybe they see something that is happy and it's shifting, so one, the blue light, but also the hormones that we're looking at triggering. So it does
Right.
help your body to recognize this shift, get into the deeper sleep, allow that hormonal repair, the memory too. So a lot
Mm.
of times people again are just thinking and doing so many things that they can't stay on track and focus. That's why we're seeing more ADD, more ADHD, and just that clarity, right? That they're not focusing enough.
Yeah.
Um, and so it ends up and it helps to clear some of those thoughts to get that thought process across a little bit better.
Sure.
But
Sure. I think
go ahead.
too that um, identifying what what are your biggest daily distractions. I mean, you need to kind of look there, and once you can identify that, and that's where journaling comes in, right at the top of the page, what's my biggest daily distraction? And then the next, part is how do I reduce it? Um, Overcoming excuses and procrastination. What action can you take even if you don't feel like it? But if you don't identify the distractions and the things that uh, focus beats motivation when it comes to lasting habits, but it's really important to be able to journal that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the other side of it is the uplifting side too, right? I have talked about that time and time again with the affirmations of, we put together a journal, because many times people, we're really good at pointing out negative, but we're really hard on ourselves when it comes to focusing on the positive. And that is one of the hardest things. I mean, I have sheets sitting here, right,
Hmm.
that I'm going to end up and put up. And one of them is, I am the woman who I dream to be. I am the one who cares I am the one who creates overflow. I am already her. I don't wait until it feels true. It is true, and I am her. And so putting things like that on your bathroom mirror, or printing them off and hanging them up so that you can end up and see them and tell yourself. Again, we created the affirmations journal so it gives you that prompts and helps you, right, to end up and kind of work through that. But again, it's not about faking it till you make it. That's why there is the forgiveness day too, because we're not looking at perfectionism. That completely will end up and burn a person out. It's about giving yourself grace, allowing you to reset without quitting, right? You don't have to go back to the beginning. You're human. I'm human.
Hmm.
I still end up in practice a lot of what we end up when we have in this challenge. But it's that the forgiveness day is that one day to pause and keeps the rest of the week sustainable. The
Yeah.
goal isn't perfection, it's progress.
Right.
So,
And if you are interested, not you, Becky, but our audience,
oh, maybe.
is it, but you and I created that affirmations journal. And then after we did, we kind of went, you know,
Hmm.
we could give it away for free, but when somebody pays a little bit, they're apt to do it a little bit more. So we priced it. I'll be honest, we priced it at $7. Um, it's a heck of a journal, and Becky and I both use it. We wrote it and we use it, right?
Yeah.
And it's $7. So if that's something you're interested in utilizing, um, if you feel like you're worth $7, it's go to the bncommunity.com, and I put the link in the chat already for everyone, and you can work through that. We even give you prompts, journal prompts, so you didn't have to come up with those on your own as well. So but we're not telling you to do something that we aren't doing ourselves.
Yep, that's the biggest thing. And that's why we wanted everyone to be able to join us, right? I wasn't looking at
Nope.
a $5 challenge or a $10 challenge or
Nope.
$40 challenge,
Nope.
because I wanted everyone to have this information and be able to join us, right? It wasn't about the next quick fix. It wasn't
Right.
about, doing again this overhaul, if you will. You didn't need more pressure. Things are tight
No.
in the lovely world that we're in right now. So you didn't need to worry about, coming up with money for the challenge, or
Right.
choosing, do I end up and buy, meat for my table, or do I end up and pay for this challenge?
Right.
Again, none of the aspects of the challenge talk directly towards weight loss either. It
No.
wasn't about building or, creating that. It was about building more of these habits to transform your life. And it wasn't extreme. It wasn't to end up and
No.
show massive transformations or join, trendy groups or camps or, anything along those lines. It was just about real life wellness. We talk about the real life in this podcast that we've created, and that's what we created in the challenge. We wanted the kind that would last. We wanted to be able to create that foundation. And yeah, that was the biggest thing. And so consistency over the chaos, progress over perfection, and foundational health over some of the fads that are floating around on social media right
Oh
now.
my gosh, right? Yeah. I mean, and it's overwhelming. If you try and do everything out there, you're going to drive yourself insane. And that was the key mind shift in all of this is um your guilt slows growth, and but grace fuels the momentum, right? So if you're guilty because you didn't do whatever your influencer is telling you to do, and you're guilty and then you just quit, you know, maybe that's not the right thing for you to be doing. Um, Self compassion. isn't a weakness. And forgiveness does help you build resilience and sustainable habits. Um, I think that self-compassion is what we want to fuel your long-term success and help you to release the guilt to move forward instead of staying stuck. And it's funny because everybody that's participating, and some in the BNC community and some outside the BNC community, because again, it's free, it's open to everyone. But it's funny how I talk to people, and everybody it's like one thing out of the challenges is kind of where they're at and what they're struggling with to build that momentum towards, whatever it is. It's just interesting how and it just proves we're all different, right?
Yep. Yep. And that's the biggest thing, like I said, with the challenge is creating that confidence in people to be able to walk away from this with a stronger relationship with their body, have more energy, have better sleep, clearer focus, right? We set you up with the tools. Um, Maybe that's your mindset. Maybe that's your metabolism. Maybe that's the mitochondria. Kind of like you said. And there's multiple areas of this that everyone. Yes, there is the community side. So if you want more of that accountability, you want people that are in your corner cheering and celebrating these small wins. Feel free to end up enjoying the community, but you'll also end up and get that even on social media because we're doing it. You're
Mhm.
not doing it alone, and there's someone there every step of the way. You feel free to tag either one of us. If you end up and are doing the challenge, I've had several posts go out on social media, and if you're doing it, use the hashtags. you know End up and just hashtag it better than yesterday. I see those hashtags. You can
Mhm.
use the hashtags, tag us. Both of us have accounts, Coach Slide does too, that you can tag, and we'll support you, we'll cheer you on. So we just want not only to support you, but we want to support your confidence in becoming someone that can keep a promise to yourself
Yeah.
and create lasting change.
Yeah, and I put in the comments, if you've experienced the inconsistency, the guilt, the start over on Monday loop, then this challenge is how you can break free.
Yeah,
And it's free.
it is. It is. And I was just looking for comments or questions in regards of the challenge. Like I said, it's free. We're not asking you to, pay anything for it. Yes, the community costs a monthly charge, but it's less than a cup of coffee. So
Mhm.
if you're someone that goes to, one of those,
Chain coffee places.
yeah, frou coffee places and gets, your specialty coffee, um, we are less than that, and you get a whole community support you. So
Yeah. So just so everyone knows, this Friday, my topic for my meeting is going to be fueling your brain with real food. So that's going to be the topic surrounding what we're going to talk about. So if you did join the BNC community, the Supercharge Your Mindset on Fridays at 11:30 Central that'll be the topic. But here's the thing: it's not just about only talking about it for that meeting. Like Becky said, we have a lot of other meetings that we are open and ready to talk and support you.
yeah, and we have one that is just community led. So
Yeah.
every day the community is there. There's the community social every day. But yeah, we have the nutrition meeting. Like I said, Coach Sly does her mental health meeting on Tuesday nights. We've got the intuitive steps or your circadian side breathwork meditation meeting on Wednesday nights. We've got sleep meeting on Thursday, aromatherapy too. Um, So if you're, into using nature and herbs and stuff. But yeah, we have several meetings per week to support you in these various parts of the. So if there's a part where you're like, I don't know that I can end up and do that, or I have questions about that, the community's there.
Absolutely.
It is built for you.
Yep, we structured it that it doesn't have to be coach led every single time,
Mhm.
right? Because we feel that every one of our members um, has very valuable input.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we would love to end up and have you join us in not only the free part, but in the community. And would love, like I said, love to have you join us and be part of this challenge and momentum moving forward, because a lot of us need these foundational practices in our everyday life.
Absolutely. Don't forget, if you don't join us, you can definitely, use what is the hashtag again, Becky?
Better than yesterday.
Better than yesterday. Tag us, tag Becky, tag myself, tag Coach Sly. We want to know. We want to cheer you on as well. So, well, I don't have any questions. I just double checked. How about you?
I don't either.
All
I think
right.
those that have joined us, and I would like I said, love to see you as part of the challenge too.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. We do read all the comments, and we're not out here getting paid to do this. We are out here doing this because we love it, and we want to help heal the whole body. So we do thank you for tuning in every week, and we kind of let this kind of escape by. We didn't make any fanfare, but we've been at this over 2 years now. Ooh, there
Yes,
was
we
your
have.
light.
Sorry. Yeah, my red
There
light
was
kicked
light.
on below me. Um, yes, we have. And it was 2 years in March, I
Two
think.
years in May.
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 Yeah.
2 years in May. And in fact, we have a new thumbnail. I put it up today for this one, so you'll see. We'll see what
Yes, ma'am.
what our new thumbnail looks like for our YouTube. And but thank you. We do appreciate you joining, and we definitely always hope that you pick something up. So with that, you guys have a great rest of your week.
We will see you next Monday. Have a wonderful